This is problem 16 from chapter 29. We're told that a single firm is the only employer in a labor market, and the marginal revenue product, labor supply, and marginal factor cost curves that it faces are displayed in the diagram over here on the right. And use this diagram to answer the following questions. So the first question is, how many units of labor will this firm employ in order to maximize its economic profits? Now remember that when we're talking about labor markets, we sort of have to switch our perspective, because now the firms are the demanders, because they're demanding the workers, the laborers, and the regular people are now the suppliers, because they're the people who are supplying the labor. But other than that small switch of perspective, the labor market functions very similarly to the product markets we've been talking about previously. So in a labor market, just like in a product market, we want to set our quantity at a place where marginal revenue equals marginal cost. And remember, for a factor of production, like in this case labor, because labor is a factor that we use to produce, right? Just like capital or land or any of those things. So in this case, we're talking about labor as our factor. The marginal cost of any factor of production, or of labor in this case, is just the marginal factor cost. So you can think of marginal factor cost as very similar to what we just called marginal cost when we were talking about a production market, or a market where we were talking about products or things that we were making, right? So we've got here, the black line here is our marginal cost curve for labor, because this is the marginal factor cost, the amount of extra costs that we incur by hiring one more person. Similarly, we have the marginal revenue product curve, which for the labor market is analogous to the marginal revenue curve in our product markets. So this is just marginal revenue product. Remember, the definition of this is just the additional revenue you get from hiring one more worker. So that's the same thing as thinking about a marginal revenue, where we talked about the additional revenue you get from making one more product. In this case, we're talking about workers, not products, but it's the same concept, really. So just like in those product markets, in the labor market, we want to hire a quantity. We want to choose our quantity based on where marginal cost equals marginal revenue. In this case, that's where the black line and the blue line intersect. So it's here at 1,000 workers. So we know we want to hire 1,000 workers, because that's where our marginal revenue equals our marginal cost, which is always our profit maximizing rule. So there we go. We know we want 1,000 workers. The next question is, what are we going to pay these workers? So remember, in the product market, for a monopolist, which is what we have here because we have only one firm that is an employer, so we basically have a monopolist in this labor market. So remember, in the product markets, we would determine how many we'd produce based on where marginal revenue and marginal cost were equal, but then we'd determine our price based on the demand curve. How much are people willing to pay for it? And that's how much we charge for it. So the flip side of that for the labor market here is we determine our quantity of laborers, or our number of workers that we're going to hire, based on where marginal cost equals marginal revenue, which we've already done. So that's 1,000. But then how do we determine how much we want to pay them? Well, we really want to know how much are they willing to work for, because we don't want to pay them any more than what they're willing to work for, because then we're basically losing money, right? We could have paid them less and they'd still work. So we figure that out by the labor supply curve, because the supply curve tells us, remember, the supply curve means the supply of workers, so the people out there who want jobs, and the supply curve tells us what they're willing to accept as a wage given the number of jobs that are available. So we know we want to offer 10,000 jobs, or 1,000 jobs, I'm sorry. So the question is, how much do we need to pay workers so that we can get 1,000 people to work? And the answer is found by looking at the labor supply curve. So we know we want 1,000 workers. So what's the wage that corresponds to 1,000 workers on the labor supply curve? And it's right here at this dot. For 1,000 workers, the wage that's acceptable to those 1,000 workers is $10 an hour. So we know we want to pay them $10. We want 1,000 workers, so we got to pay them. We got to pay $10 in order to get 1,000 people to work for us. That's what the supply curve for labor tells us. Is if I want 1,000 workers, how much I got to pay to get 1,000 workers. So I know I want 1,000 workers because that's where my marginal revenue and marginal cost are equal, right? So I chose my quantity based on marginal revenue and marginal cost. But then I choose my price or my wage based on the labor supply curve and how much people are willing to work for. So if I want 1,000 workers, I know that I can pay $10 and 1,000 people will choose to work for me. So the hourly wage rate for this firm is that $10. There we go. And the last question is just, so what's the total amount of wage payments that the firm will make to its workers each hour? So we know they've got 1,000 workers and they're paying each of them $10. So the total amount they're paying to workers is just that $10 times that 1,000 workers, or $10,000. And we're good. So if you have any more questions about this, feel free to shoot me an email or stop by office hours.